Can you hear it? The pulse of our region. It's starting to sound like progress. It's happening here and there, all around us. We're gaining momentum and catalyzing change. But it doesn't happen on its own. We need each other. Every person, every business, every organization, we all play a role. We're leading. We're collaborating. We're growing. Yeah, we've had some wins, but we still have work to do. We're leveraging our assets, investing in innovation, and creating opportunities for everyone here to share in this momentum. The pulse of our region is strong, it's steady, it's rhythmic. Can you hear it? Can you see it? Are you a part of it? Every beat represents the commitment, the drive, the determination that is uniquely Akron. Our progress is palpable, but we've only just begun. We're gaining traction and building something powerful, something together, something greater.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 Greater Akron Chamber Annual Meeting and the kickoff of our Leadership Dialogue Series. I couldn't be more excited to be with you this morning as we share updates on our progress, facilitate a dialogue among some of our top CEOs, and honor the legacy and impact of this year's H. Peterburg Economic Development Leadership Award winner, Roger Reed. I'd like to begin by thanking the presenting sponsors for this series, including Browse McDowell, First Energy, KeyBank, Local IQ, and SummaCare. I'd also like to thank our premier sponsors as well, listed on these slides. Their willingness to continue to support this annual meeting and to allow us to experiment a little bit with the Leadership Dialogue series that we're going to host over the next couple of months is very much appreciated. And that investment in the ability to use a virtual format is going to allow us to increase the access to the content in the series by making it available free of charge to anyone who wants to learn more about these important topics from a bunch of engaging and impactful local and national leaders. More on that to come. This year has brought unanticipated challenges for all of us. It's required us to adapt and be nimble. It's tested our resilience, caused us to stop and reflect on the way we do things, the work we do, and even where we do it. It's exposed and widened the cracks that we need to address in our region relative to inclusion and equity. It's also reminded us of our strength and the impact we can have as business leaders and as a region, which is something we're going to need to lean on as we move forward together. When things get crazy, the people you lead look even more closely at your reaction, your confidence, your vision, and your strength. They draw from it, and they need it, even when you're unsure yourself where to go. This morning, we'll share with you some brief updates on our work, but we want to spend most of our time looking forward, because that's where most of your time and attention need to be. You'll hear from Greater Akron Chamber Chair Mark Mcculcek and Chair-elect Grace Mcculcek as they reflect on the work of the Chamber, the region's resilience, and the work we have ahead to drive economic recovery and growth in Greater Akron. In addition, this meeting will serve as a launch for the Chamber's Leadership Dialogue Series, a set of 5 panels featuring local and national perspectives on critical topics for the business community. Today, we're honored to have several top business leaders from Greater Akron to set the stage and share their insights on their own 2020 experience and their thoughts on what's ahead for their companies and the region. Finally, we're going to end our meeting by honoring and celebrating our 2020 H. Peterburg Economic Development Leadership Award winner, Roger Reed, for his leadership and contributions to the success of Greater Akron. Even as many of you are shaping your leadership story and your legacy now, leaders like Roger have created a foundation for growth, success, and action in this community that enables the work we do today. At the Chamber, we've been working on our own leadership story and to be a better connector, collaborator, and catalyst for the business community. We're privileged to work alongside a broad, capable, and committed set of partners in the region's economic development and business support ecosystem. While we have had accomplishments, there's always much more to do. We appreciate the leadership, the encouragement and support of every one of you as members and stakeholders that enables and funds the work we do on your behalf. Speaking of leadership, as you know, we originally planned on having this meeting on March 18th, and we were queued up to elect new board members and leaders at that time. Given our COVID delay, the board acted at its May meeting to fill vacancies to March term expirations, with the slate of the nominees previously prepared by our nominating committee for presentation at our March annual meeting. The board also acted as was required at its May meeting to elect board officers, including Grace Mcculcek as the chair of the organization. Because of the obvious focus on COVID she had to have in the last few months, she asked to defer assuming her responsibilities as chair until following this meeting. In the interim, we called on Mark Mcculcek to extend his term by 6 months in support of Grace and the organization. We've been scrolling the information about those departing and newly elected board leaders, and you can also access that information at the link we posted in the chat. Thanks to all those departing and new leaders for your willingness to lead. With that, I'd like to introduce Greater Akron Chamber Chair Mark Mcculcek, provide his perspective on our progress and his reflection on his time leading this organization over the last 2.5 years. Mark's been an outstanding guide and a mentor to me. And for the organization, he's helped us navigate a new direction, has provided tremendous support, leadership, and counsel each step of the way. Mark?
Thank you, Steve. As Steve alluded to, there is nothing traditional about this year's annual meeting program, which suits 2020, as traditional is certainly the last word I would use to describe this year. Typically, we would spend time rehashing our work, sharing our learnings, and celebrating our victories. All of that is important, but given our focus on the look forward and the talent we have in today's panel, this year I'll just hit the high points with the hope that you'll take a moment to review our fuller summary and our 2019 annual report on our website. We've put the link in the chat area for your convenience. When I became chair of the Greater Akron Chamber in the spring of 2018, I knew I had my work cut out for me. Not the slightest of tasks were identifying the next staff leader for this organization and doing our part as the chamber in this newly solidified collaboration with the city, county, and GAR Foundation for the Elevate Greater Akron Regional Economic Development Plan. My time as chair has brought about many opportunities and challenges for this organization, the business community, and the region. Some anticipated, many not. However, as I reflect on the work we've done over my time as chair, I can't help but think that everything we've done to date has set us up for this very moment in time, a critical time of action, collaboration, strategy, and support amid an unplanned, unprecedented time in our history and in our economy. During the first 2 years of my role as chair, we focused on collaboration and building a responsive, coordinated ecosystem. The Elevate Greater Akron work has connected economic development organizations in a new way and has ignited a sense of camaraderie as we are all aligned under one vision for this region. These partners are working together, communicating and leveraging one another's strengths to the benefit of the businesses in Greater Akron. We doubled down on our focus on and commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We hosted the first Greater Akron Inclusion Summit and raised awareness about the vast racial inequities in this region as we reiterated the critical importance of inclusion as a key economic development tool. We launched resources to help companies assess themselves in several areas of diversity and inclusion, and we are making it easier for minority-owned companies to be supported and connected to opportunities. We made the case that efforts on diversity, equity, and inclusion are more than just the right thing to do, and that those efforts are critical to the economic success of our region if we're to succeed in creating a thriving ecosystem. We formed a partnership with the Women's Network Leadership Institute to create opportunity and support the growth and advancement of female leaders who are building their careers, their teams, and their businesses. We continued our focus to support businesses in this region by connecting them to resources to address challenges in areas like workforce and capital, and to help them capitalize on growth opportunities. We work to ease pain points for small and mid-sized businesses through new offerings in health insurance and a new group 401k opportunity that is coming together now. And we advanced our advocacy efforts and ensured that the voice of the business community was heard in Columbus and in Washington, D.C. on critical policy issues. Then the COVID-19 pandemic struck the world, and Greater Akron was tested in ways we've never been tested before. Overnight, companies sent their employees home to work. Restaurants and retailers closed. So many businesses were forced to pause without a moment's notice. It is at times like these that we measure the true region's resilience. As we saw it, there were two options. Our region could be paralyzed by the change and the magnitude of its destructive impact, or we could swim upstream and address it head on. I'm not surprised in the least that the leaders in our community chose the latter. It's in our DNA, and frankly, it's what makes Greater Akron so special. Immediately, our region swung into action. Leaders in business, government, and economic development came together to help, And more than that, to focus on growth. Within days, the partnerships and collaboration fostered by Elevate Greater Akron were leveraged. Economic development organizations were meeting daily to launch a COVID-19 business response website to connect businesses and their employees with valuable information about the status of the virus, changing rules and guidelines during the shutdown, and to connect with resources that could help from advice on PPE to short-term business and financial assistance. We hosted broad information calls connecting our public health resources with business and community leaders, and worked to continue to find new ways to connect business leaders with each other. We worked with our hospitals to help them access equipment and PPE. We worked with manufacturers to drive a shift in their work to support the new needs of our community. Not long after that, the Small Business Emergency Relief Grant Fund was launched. Driven by County Executive Eileen Shapiro, supported by the City of Akron and several other Summit County communities, and with support from KeyBank, Jumpstart, and the Burton D. Morgan Foundation. This resulted in 2 rounds of funding. We received over 2,800 applicants and awarded 1,900 grants for a total of more than $7.8 million in support to small businesses in Greater Akron. Of those awarded, 49% were disadvantaged businesses, 36% were women-owned businesses, and 13% were Black-owned businesses. What Summit County Executive Shapiro, Chief of Staff Brian Nelson, and County Council delivered to our businesses is the biggest program of its kind in the state, underlining the value they believe our smaller businesses have to our economy. And our work continues. On Monday of this week, another $5 million in support was authorized for a 3rd round of help to our county's businesses. The Chamber will continue to manage this work to the benefit of the county's businesses. When I think about the region's response to COVID-19, it conjures words like collaboration, innovation, agility, focus, grit, and vision. Thankfully, these are also many of the words I could use to describe my first years of my role as chair. It was as though the universe knew what was coming and prepared us for it over those 2 years of time. By the time COVID-19 hit, collaboration was no longer an item on our agenda. It was just the way we work. Innovation and agility were muscles we were forced to exercise and strengthen as we reimagined Greater Akron's economic development plan and shifted our focus to position ourselves for growth. Vision had become a collective expectation of the business community and the economic development ecosystem. We needed to have it in order to move forward, and we challenged one another to keep it at the top of our minds. And grit, well, that's just innate in all of us here in Akron, and it really shines in moments like this. To be completely candid, my time as chair of this organization was nothing like I anticipated it would be. It was so much better. I could not be more proud of this organization, the business community, and our economic development ecosystem. To be clear, we have major challenges we continue to face. Beyond COVID recovery, we have big lifts ahead for downtown development, stimulating entrepreneurship, innovating and improving small business support, retention and attraction, and our work in economic inclusion has started, but has a long way to go to make the impact that is necessary. Our to-do list remains long and gets longer by the day, but we are more well-positioned than ever to tackle whatever comes our way. I am thankful for this opportunity to have worked alongside so many incredibly talented and committed leaders, and I look forward to what's next for the Chamber and the region.
Thank you, Mark, for your leadership on behalf of the organization. We appreciate the way you've set us up for what's next for the Chamber and the region. Now I'm pleased to introduce the Greater Akron Chamber's incoming chair, Grace Mcculcek of Akron Children's Hospital.
As a way to thank you for your time and leadership, we'd like to present you with 2 gifts. First, this sculpture from a local artist so that you will always have something to remind you of your leadership and accomplishments in this role. And secondly, is the use of the First Energy's dugout suite at Progressive Field for a game sometime next year. Go Indians.
Grace, thank you so much for this award and for the use of the First Energy dugout suite next season. You know, being part of the Chamber has been a team effort, so being part of a team sport just is apropos. But I appreciate all that you've done as my vice chair and chair-elect of the Chamber to help me this year. The executive committee has been wonderful, and I've been the recipient of great experiences, and I look forward to what the Chamber can do next.
I'm honored to be taking on the role of chair of this organization during this unique time. Before I begin, I would like to echo Steve's remarks and thank Mark one more time for his leadership and vision over the last 2.5 years. As Mark noted, the last 2 years have been focused on building a foundation for the work we have ahead. The work and the progress that has been made allows me, during my time as chair, to work with our board members and focus on strengthening our impact and driving critical outcomes. COVID-19 has shifted the way we work we do, and how we deliver it. It has created unavoidable opportunities to reflect, pivot, and reimagine our work. Sometimes we may not feel like we've been given opportunities, but the time has granted us a pause to evaluate our performance, our products, and our path forward. The Chamber must use this as an opportunity to reflect, pivot, and reimagine our work. The focus areas outlined in the Chamber's blueprint launched under Mark's chairmanship: economic inclusion, employment growth, workforce needs, and the support of businesses continue to be the essence of our work. The Chamber remains more relevant than ever. The way we address these priorities will need to be changed. I'm not exactly sure what the next few quarters are going to look like. I do know that we will be able to respond to whatever comes our way because of the remarkable collaboration of our local governments, our businesses, our educational facilities, and our community organizations. The Elevate Greater Akron plan identified significant opportunity for our businesses, our workforce, and our economy as a result of the economic exclusion of the Black community in the past. As business leaders, we are in the position to address this. We make the decisions about who we hire, who we promote, and who are our suppliers. Inclusion starts with a change in our awareness and our behavior. We have nearly 40 incredible companies engaged in our inclusion work. We need to grow that list. We cannot change our economic reality if companies are not engaged. The Chamber promises to help us support these changes. The Chamber will expand on the tools and programs to help companies and institutions assess their current status and support best practice initiatives. We'll also increase the options to engage with minority and disadvantaged businesses. We will work with our partners to increase technical support for new and emerging minority and owned businesses. This is a difficult time for many of our small and mid-sized businesses. The Chamber's first priority is helping them recover. That means continued efforts to drive more support to businesses from state and federal governments. The Chamber can also directly support their operations with our health benefits and new retirement programs. The workforce landscape has changed in the last 6 months, and the Chamber's goal is to help employers connect with displaced talent and retraining opportunities. In partnership with organizations like Connexus NEO, Stark State College, and our local universities, our goal is to ensure our employers informed training needs. A strong economy where businesses can start, grow, and thrive will remain a critical focus. The Elevate Greater Akron plan has moved us forward and unified us under a common vision. As we approach the 2-year mark of the initial launch of this plan, we find ourselves operating in an altered business and social environment. We need to continue the work collaboratively with our partners, including the city, the county, GAR Foundation, Connexus NEO, Downtown Akron Partnership, and others to evaluate our programs and identify new initiatives within the Elevate Greater Akron 2.0 plan. Finally, the Chamber will focus on engagement and leadership of the business community. We can be most effective when business leaders inform and drive the work of the Chamber. We will revamp our communication tools to deliver relevant content and engagement opportunities. We want to make it easier to learn about key topics and participate in this work. I believe in this region, and I have confidence in our future. Yes, there is a lot we need to do as a business community, but our foundation is strong. While the future is uncertain in many ways, I have confidence that this organization's resilience and the ability to respond to the ever-changing business needs. Our focus remains on strength, growth, and the opportunity of our entire business community and our region. I look forward to working together with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. We're fortunate to have your leadership as we continue our work. As we segue to the panel discussion, I'd like to now introduce Bill Albrecht, Regional VP of Local IQ and the Akron Beacon Journal, to introduce our panel. Local IQ and the Akron Beacon Journal is one of our key sponsors and supporters, particularly as we focus on telling the stories of growth and innovation among businesses in the region. Take it away, Bill.
Thanks, Steve. As Steve alluded, we are in the business of telling stories, and I can attest firsthand that the narrative of Greater Akron's resilience has never been more positive. Being relatively new to Greater Akron and having lived in a lot of places, I find the connectivity and relationships in this community are special and unique. And the way we have come together to lead, help, and innovate during this unprecedented time is yet another testament to our strength and promise for what is to come. I appreciate being given the opportunity to introduce this panel this morning, though none of them really need much of an introduction at all. We have 5 leaders with us today who have generously agreed to share with us their insight and perspectives on key topics like inclusion, leadership, resilience, and recovery, particularly related to their experience over the last 6 months amid the pandemic. We will also hear about their priorities for their business and the key issues we should be thinking about as we position our businesses for growth in our region. With that, I would like to introduce Tim Burke, President, Northeast Ohio Key Bank. Tim brings with him wealth, pun intended, of information on the capital markets and trends relative to businesses as they recover and grow in this unique economic situation. Cliff Devney, President and CEO, Summa Health. Dr. Devney and his colleagues across the healthcare system have been at the forefront of the COVID-19 pandemic as they play a critical role in the health and well-being of our residents. Dr. Devney also brings a unique perspective as the largest employer in Summit County and a key driver of investment and economic development. Carrie Jaros, Chief Executive Officer, Gojo. Carrie assumed her new post as CEO of Gojo in January, and to say that it has been an eventful year is a significant understatement. Carrie brings with her an incredible set of experience and perspective in areas like strategy, innovation, leadership, and growth. All critical elements to Gojo's ability to not only respond to the public health crisis in 2020, but also deal with the need for speed to ensure urgent growth that is sustainable in an uncertain future. Steve Straw, President, First Energy Corp. Steve has been a consistent presence at First Energy for over 36 years and was recently named in his new role as president. Steve's unique insights on matters related to operations, strategy execution, customer service, combined with his responsibility to lead First Energy during the pandemic, position him well to share insights on leadership during a time of crisis, the critical nature of economic development strategy, and the importance of focus as keys to success. Tia Ramlow, President, Great Work Employment Services. Workforce is consistently cited as one of the top challenges facing employers, and Tia is in the center of it all. In her work, she connects employers with talent and can attest to the demands, gaps, and critical nature of skilled workforce as a driver of economic development. Tia is also the chair of the Ohio Small Business Council with the Ohio Chamber. Tia brings a perspective on challenges and opportunities facing small business and community from both operational and policy standpoints. Steve Millard, President and CEO of Greater Akron Chamber, will be moderating the discussion today. His work alongside of businesses from an operational, economic development, and public policy perspective make him an ideal facilitator for this important conversation. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks again for all you do to help sell the stores in our region, including this morning on the new grant program that we've got rolling out of the 3rd round or so. I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity for small businesses, but keep the information coming about our region. Thanks again, Mark and Grace, for all your comments this morning and your leadership and commitment in the midst of everything else that you do. It's so important for the Chamber. And good morning to my panelists. I'm glad that you're all here, have made it, we're all connected, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. We appreciate you being willing to spend some time this morning talking about some of the experiences of 2020, leadership, resilience, and change. I'm hoping for a little dialogue here. it's just us and about 400 of our closest friends. So feel free to share any, insights with this small group of folks. I know they'll be interested to hear your perspective on these things. And again, if you have thoughts as we go through, I'll direct some questions at you guys and ask you for your perspective, but please jump in if you've got additional thoughts to add. Again, we've got about 30 minutes here, and I'd like to have a nice dialogue. We'll have time for some Q&A afterwards. And so if you do have questions for our panelists, there is a Q&A function that you have that you can sort of put a question in there, and our team will take a look at it, and we'll get them queued up for our panelists. So let's jump right in. Cliff, I want to start with you. Obviously, you're not only the head of our largest employer here in the county, but also one of our key health systems. And you had a kind of a dual role in the pandemic. You both had to manage the health system and its impact as a physician, but then also as a leader of your organization. And I guess at the front lines of those things, what did you do first? How did you think about leading in this process? What were some of the key things that sort of occurred to you in the first few days and weeks when you knew this was going to be something unprecedented for our community?
Right, great question. One of the things we practice and have done that for years is what's called a hospital incident command system. And that's really where we, if there was a plane crash or there was a big fire, or there was something that happened, we practiced that. We actually implemented that within probably hours of the sense that things were going to get bad in Ohio. So I think it was Tuesday morning that we had started that formally. But that became the place where all information was gathered. That's where we made decisions. And really what we have as an organization have had to deal with is a lot of barriers over the last 3 or 4 years since I got here. And I'd say we have a very resilient group of people. And when we look at our mission and we look at why we exist, this is what people really, they believe in. And so what I saw was people at Sumo, instead of running away, started running into the fire. They were solving problems. They were figuring out how to get enough equipment. We moved 1,000 people home within 2 weeks. We spent $2 million to get everybody set up, but that was really because it was necessary to continue our services. It was critical that we continue to take care of people. My sense is that communication and being transparent and being calm and saying, reassuring people we could deal with this was critical.
And I think that calmness is a key thing. I look at the other end of the spectrum in terms of, Cliff, you've been in your role for a long time. Carrie, you started your role with Gojo as president and CEO earlier this year, and definitely right into the fire. I know that you've been with Gojo for a while and knew the organization, but as a new leader in your organization, how did you think about sort of driving the team during this process, especially because it had such a lift for you in terms of demand? I mean, not only are you dealing with pandemic issues, but also how do we scale up like now?
Sure, Steve. So, I like Dr. Devaney's concept of running into the fire. I think Gojo team members are sort of wired that way to begin with. And so even though I was brand new in my new role right at the beginning of January, we had a lot of, we had both culture and systems in place to really allow us to respond really quickly. So, first of all, we have this detect and alert team that runs in the background all the time. It's like an app on your phone that's running when you're not even paying attention to it. And we're always looking at what's going on in the world, making sure we understand if there are any kinds of emerging issues. And so that detect and alert team was telling us really on, my second day on the job, hey, we've got some stuff going on in Asia that we need to be paying attention to. Very quickly, it became clear that was going to result in substantial increases in demand for us. I'm not sure we recognized how substantial or the duration of that increase in demand. Very different than the past when there might have been a big spike, but it would have been more short-lived. And so we immediately just jumped into action. And we turned all of our manufacturing facilities on 24/7 in February. We got really creative and figured out how to source all kinds of components for our products. I think you guys have probably seen some of the Purell out there in the world that doesn't look the way that you're used to it looking. Right. So we collaborated with all kinds of companies to source crazy bottles and pumps and caps. And, we really, as a networked organization who is just generally good at sort of getting together and solving problems, we jumped right into it. And so I felt like my job was to support the team. I didn't have to create something new. I had to really support the people who were doing what they're already great at doing.
And so, you look at the fact that, Carrie, you had that scan and detect ability to sort of look ahead and saw it early. Cliff, you were sort of dealing with, the entire health system and all the authorities telling you what was going on. Tia Ramlow, you're kind of at the other end of the spectrum, not with a lot of advance warning, and you're sort of reacting as a smaller business owner with a lot of uncertainty and a lot of pressure, right, on the day-to-day operations and bottom line without a big staff to support you. Talk about how you sort of inspired confidence, communicated, managed your small team of 25 through this process.
Sure, Steve. Yeah, it is a little bit different when you have 25 employees and overnight you lose 50% of your revenue. And there's a lot of fear there with your staff, and they're looking to you for answers in a time when this was something that no one even knew where the next day was taking you. So it was definitely a scramble, but a good scramble from a standpoint that coming into it, we saw what was happening. And that Friday before, I think it was March 13th, before DeWine shut down Ohio, I brought my management team together and I said, I don't know where this is going, but you can be assured we're all getting out at the back end together. And I think just being able to give them a little bit of consistency and take away the fear was my biggest goal at that time, because there was a lot of haze and there was a lot of fear and no one knew where it was going. So
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as an owner, how was your level of fear?
Well, definitely there, but you got to instill the confidence for people, and so it's there. I have asthma. There's, you don't know what's going on, and so it is one of those things where you say to yourself, okay, where are we going? Do we shut down? Do we make it through the other side? And as a small business, those are kind of your options, because you don't have necessarily the resources of hundreds of millions of dollars. So doing that and just getting communications together very quickly. I have 7 local offices that are really small. And so having to stay open, we needed to still be in our offices. It wasn't something that we could just go home and do this. And so even though 50% went away, 50% were still working. It was a critical labor function. And you had people having to go to work still and work on a line. Most of it's manufacturing and distribution. You can't do that from home. And so working with our field employees, the temporary employees that are at our clients, and just understanding how do we get through this and interview people and get people to work for the clients that still had a need. And so we did that. And the biggest other thing that I was doing is I came into the office, as a leader. I didn't want to ask my staff to do something that I wasn't ready to do as well. So I was there with them and talking with them and trying to help them look at the next day and what are we going to do. And then
being present, being on the ground, giving them confidence as well.
Yeah.
So you also gave them a little financial sort of encouragement, if you will, or at least some security in that process. Is that right?
Yeah, that was important to me. I think that was one of the biggest fears for everybody is, am I going to lose my job? And this is a reaction to something that's completely out of their control. So I wanted to let them know that we were going to get through this. I didn't want them to be afraid every day of how, they're going to pay their rent and things like that. So that was a big step, I think, in a time of uncertainty, but I wanted them to feel the confidence to be able to come in and do their job. And it was hard.
So, meanwhile, back at First Energy Tower, with 12,000 plus employees in the organization, Steve Straw, and a whole bunch sort of in back office and out in field operations, how did you sort of manage this switch, and what kinds of those changes did you make in your organization?
Thanks, Steve. I think Tia just made a number of just great points regarding the uncertainty of the days and the times that we're living in. And to Tia's point, first of all, we kept the health and safety of families first and foremost, of our employees, but also the public. We obviously provide a critical, essential service, and we couldn't walk away from that responsibility, of course. So of the 12,000 employees we have roughly 7,500 of them working remotely. And we were able to accomplish that in 2 different ways. And I think it's also a key thread in all the discussion we've heard this morning. Organizations and leaders just need to have that intrinsic ability to see around a corner. So previously, we had installed a pandemic training program that helped build the foundation of what we may face here. So that's been in place and drilled for well over 10 years. And then secondly, our IT department installed Microsoft Teams roughly 18 months ago. And that has been just a very, very critical tool for us to navigate through this very uncertain period. And it also provides some excellent cybersecurity protections that are very valuable. And then for those employees that we just don't have any other option, but they have to work in the field and do that very enriching but very tough work at the front line. We established safety protocols in which we split up our work groups into much smaller, what we call pods. So much smaller number of employees working throughout a scattered plot throughout our 5-state region. We work very closely with our 15 unions to ensure that we had the appropriate personal protective equipment needed, and most importantly, an absolute rock solid testing program in which we could instill confidence that as we test employees for the virus, we have a high degree of confidence that we're doing all the right things there. We also did a lot of work regarding contact tracing. All those built together really form the basis of how we're operating right now. Our employees that are working remotely will work remote until January 11th is what we're targeting. And we're executing our work, not only from a back office view, a finance view, but we're getting work completed in the field to serve customers. Even despite all of our efforts, however, we did have one employee in New Jersey at JCP&L that did pass away from the virus. So that was obviously heartbreaking. We were able to ensure that it was an activity outside of our workplace in which he ended up getting the virus. But even throughout all this entire dealing with the pandemic, we've just got to stay vigilant and we've got to stay agile to all the other points.
Well,
so
you know,
that's where we're at right now, Steve.
So you know, all of you have talked about the fact you couldn't just stay home. But when I look at Tim, what you were dealing with at Key Bank, not only couldn't you stay home, but Congress and the government goes ahead and passes the PPP program, and within days asks our banks to bring it up. Talk about how you manage scale up, both while you're dealing with remote workers, new processes, a whole different way of working. Just talk us through how some of that played out for you.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Well, just building on what Steve and Tia said, I think communication was critical as well as the ability to be agile. You know, when you get about a week's notice that the government's going to run $250 billion through the banking system, you really don't have much of a choice but to roll your sleeves up and really get to work. And what I was very proud of is, you know, I felt like it was our duty as leaders to make sure that our teams understood that from my perspective, this could very well be the single most important thing that we could ever do for our clients, was to facilitate this program through the banking system to make sure that our clients received the funding that in many cases was going to be critical to their ability to survive and thrive in the next 3 to 6 months. So was very proud of our team's ability to react that way and to step up and deliver. We've processed over 40,000 applications through the Paycheck Protection Program, which totaled almost $8.5 billion in funding. Of those, 400 were applications to middle market companies across Northeast Ohio. We're also focused on helping clients who receive funding through the loan forgiveness process, which will be starting very shortly. Clearly, one thing we learned, as many other panelists have shared, our greatest asset through this process was clearly our employees. They didn't hesitate to work 16 to 18-hour days, 7 days a week to make sure that no customer was left behind in this process, to do everything we could to support each of these companies. The one good thing was that even before the pandemic, he had a very strong business resiliency plan in place. This enabled our employees to easily make the transition to working from home. One other point I'd make is approximately 1 in 4 of the applications we did process were for applicants located in low to moderate income communities. Approximately 6% of those have been to non-for-profits as well.
And that money was so critical to keeping folks going and also helping folks adjust in the process. Carrie, as you think about the scale up you guys had to do, I mean, your demand has gone off the charts, and you've got to invest, and everybody's crying out for the product. I even asked you for a tanker of it for our parking lot, which hasn't gotten here yet, but I appreciate what you have provided to us. But I think about the scale up and doing that in a way, though, to quote somebody who has given me some advice, make sure what you do today is sustainable for your business long term. How do you think about that in your case?
Yeah, Steve. So there have been sort of various phases to this, right? It hasn't been the same the whole time. So I think in the very early days when we didn't know how long this would last or how big it would be, it was about implementing our playbook from the past, from surges like H1N1 or really bad flu seasons. And so we always keep extra inventory, both in components and in raw materials and finished goods. We have extra capacity in our manufacturing on purpose to handle surges. And so we sort of started by just turning all that on. Pretty quickly, it became clear that that wasn't going to be sufficient. We were going to need more components, more raw materials. We were going to need to run all of our lines all the time for a really long period. And so we moved into a second stage, which was all about getting creative on sourcing components and raw materials, looking for partners who could help us co-pack our materials to expand our actual manufacturing capacity. And so we went into that stage. And then, frankly, we looked forward and said, this is going on for long enough and in a significant enough way that we believe it's going to actually change the world in a way that's sustained. And so we don't think people's relationships and businesses' relationships with skincare, skin hygiene, and with surface hygiene are going to be the same after this. And so we went into a third stage, which was really about permanently adjusting our capacity to meet a new normal, whatever that is. And if you're on this panel and you should tell me what the new normal is going to be. We spend a lot of time talking about it. But that phase has started, and we are right in the middle of it. And we are literally investing hundreds of millions of dollars of capital to permanently increase our capacity. We're doing that in our skincare products, especially in our hand sanitizers. Those are investments in our plants. They're investments in thinking about how to source in a really elevated way over a long period of time from a components and raw materials perspective. But also, we actually purchased additional facilities. So we bought a new facility in Navarre. We bought a new facility in Maple Heights to make Purell surface spray. And so we are preparing for a new normal that is more than 2x where we started in 2019. And for a business our size to step into doubling its business, more than doubling its business overnight, and really accelerating its capital spending by 10 years. So we've done 10 years of capital spending in 1 year, is just extraordinary. There are days where it feels like we're not riding, the horse. The horse is riding us. But I will say the vast majority of the time, we are all getting up every day. Our Gojo values of saving lives and making life better are propelling us. And our purpose of saving lives and making life better is propelling us. Our values around really being better together as one team, around having uncompromising integrity, around having the courage to do things other people won't do, those really help us stay the course. And there aren't a lot of moments where, I'm curled up in a ball in the corner. I really feel like the team is, we're up for it. And we're hiring hundreds of people. So that's great for the community, even at a time when there are lots of things that are really hard.
As part of our service to you, Carrie, I curl up in a ball in the corner every day for you, so it's all good.
I appreciate that.
But no, I mean, I think it's interesting because you could cynically look at this and say, wow, Gojo should be doing great here. Isn't this great for them? It's not great for anybody, but you're making big investments in people and facilities, so we appreciate that. But let's talk about that across the other panelists. What lasts from all this for your business? So in your business, as you sort of plan and strategize, every year you go through a planning process that we're going to do this and that. This last year has shown us that can all go to heck in a moment. But what's going to last in your business long term from this that's going to be good for your business? Let me ask that question of Cliff first.
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things that healthcare providers for a long time resisted was using telehealth. and about 1% of care was provided virtually. As of today, if you look at SUMA, you look at Cleveland Clinic, we're probably 45% of our office visits are now done virtually. We're actually seeing that the adoption was much faster than we thought by both the providers and the patients, and patient satisfaction has actually gone up. Another interesting fact is the use of the emergency room has dropped about 15% nationally, and we've seen that in our community. And so the fact that people are using different avenues to get care is going to be a permanent solution going forward. I think that we're also seeing that people just need to think differently about trust with their employees. Everybody talked about using people working from home. We always had kind of you had to come to work. Well, the reality now is we've actually seen by people working from home, we have close to 1,500 people now working from home. Productivity is up, employee satisfaction is up, and it's become a satisfier. When we look at our employee base now, it's probably goes all the way from Pennsylvania to Toledo down to Columbus, because we have so many people working virtually, call center employees, health insurance employees. We can be much more nimble about where we go finding employees. And many people have really struggled in our community. We have 500 open positions this morning, and we are continuing to struggle to find people. But now that we can be more adaptive to these types of new normals, we can find employees that are willing to work and being probably more relaxed in what our expectations are.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have got to know the cats and dogs and kids of the folks that work with us. And I think also maybe understand that balance can happen. Obviously, there's policy implications for that in terms of where people work and funding flows and those things, but all great things to think about. I do think Akron is one of those communities, though, that and the whole greater Akron area that benefits from the ability to have a great quality of life and work well, and remote even helps us even more there. As we think about things that last, Tia, what lasts in your business long term here? What innovations have been created, and what things do you see continuing?
I think the use of technology in the human resource arena, hiring people, you don't need to have them coming in for an interview. You can use WebExes and different video conferencing in order to interview people now. You can get people orientated online with all the documentation. So it opens up a lot of the needs for people that can't get into the office right then. And the other thing that I've seen is also, I think that we will have a greater acceptance in the manufacturing area and the warehouse distribution, which historically has always been very rigid in attendance. And now we got to give up that a little bit. We have to understand that we don't want people to come to work sick. And so it used to be a very punitive type system. And I think that my clients now are understanding that we have to open that up and have some other ways to be able to fill those positions when somebody is sick, and we want them to get better before they come back. So I do think we'll see that in the future too.
I mean, a good news story from the perspective of, especially we talk about leave and the importance of leave and being able to make it happen. All of a sudden, we were making it able to happen for a lot of people. And it was hard and it was expensive because of the way the mandates are put down on businesses. But at the same time, I think we've all learned new ways that we can do that, which hopefully lasts long term. Steve Straw, what lasts in your business long term from this?
Well, Steve, from our perspective, I think our business model itself, our business plan currently is very resilient. So I'm very confident we'll be able to weather this pandemic and get into that new normal, whatever it is. And I think from that standpoint, my thoughts go to the business plan itself. With the increased residential load that we're seeing due to working remotely, that's been helpful for our company. But on the other hand, I still am concerned, and we are working as hard as we can with our customers, in particular the small businesses, the commercial and industrial sectors, to really help them as much as we can from an economic development or viewpoint, or helping them get through the process of paying their bills where they need to for us. Because I know our customers want us to take a fair and balanced approach there. We are, but it breaks my heart to see some of them struggling the way they are. So as a good community citizen, we're working very hard on that front. To the earlier point, we really have had some breakthroughs in terms of working remotely. We have a very large customer service, customer call center operation. We're working remotely there and really not skipping a beat. We also have been struck, unfortunately, by several very large hurricanes in the U.S., one deeply impacting New Jersey for us. We were able to work remotely and do operational support from individual homes while working through that storm restoration activity. So I think from storm restoration, call center operations, those are two examples of breakthroughs that'll make us a better company.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've seen in the economic development space is a lot of folks reevaluating where they need people. Again, there's implications there, but being able to accelerate the use of technology and do things totally different has been something everybody's embraced. Tim, you guys have just done a pretty big look at mid-sized companies and sort of how they're feeling right now, what their outlook is. What did that research sort of tell you about them?
Sure, thanks, Steve. Well, recently, Key surveyed over 400 middle market business owners across our footprint about how COVID has impacted their business. We surveyed them in March and then again in June. Responses suggest that the impact COVID had on middle market businesses has not declined since the second quarter, which is good news. Compared to late March, when shutdowns to combat the spread of COVID took hold, outlooks have begun to shift back towards being slightly more positive. When asked about their business health, a slight majority of business owners stated they were positive about their performance. Also, a strong majority of respondents told KeyBank that the impact on their businesses so far hasn't been as bad as they expected. These business owners reported that their company's health has been either as expected or better than original projections that were made back in March when COVID-19 began to take hold. So I think overall the outlook is positive to slightly positive on a go-forward basis.
So, Tia, as you sort of look at the impact on our smaller businesses and in the role that you play for the Ohio Chamber, what are you hearing from folks that they're most concerned about right now?
I think just the rules changed really quickly and dramatically for small businesses. The emergency paid sick leave was for 500 and under employees. Unemployment, we're going to be looking at a long-term payback plan for that in the 2009 recession took 6 years and businesses paid that tax. And so there's going to be, new regulations. There's going to be fallout with healthcare, I think, from a standpoint that new mandates will be on what has to be covered. And those historically increase healthcare costs, which are high for the premiums for businesses. So I think those are going to be some of the long-term things. I know the remote workforce is huge for all the companies, but I also see that as going to impact culture. How is your culture going to change? How do people stay engaged and how do people stay long-term if they're working from home and don't have the friends that they're working next to? So I think all that's going to be something that comes down the pike and it's just change. It's not bad, it's not good, but it's going to be things that businesses are going to have to look at because we've tried to build culture and get people to stay and make a really great place to work. And now they're all at their homes. So it'll be interesting.
Well, I think one of the things that's so important as Key does surveys, as the Ohio Chamber does surveys, as we do surveys, helping us understand what you're seeing helps us communicate that to our legislators and our policymakers. We have talked to them every single day. We have an advocacy committee, as many of you know. They just want to keep hearing what's going on so they can react because, as I've said often, I've not met legislators who want to do the wrong thing, but I've met many who don't know what the right thing to do is. So that's something we have to help them with as businesses. And I appreciate your leadership with the Chamber and our small business community. So as we think about this, I want to shift a little bit to the other big story for 2020, obviously, inclusion, right? Economic inclusion and the impact of it. As you all know, our Elevate Greater Akron plan addressed the impact of economic exclusion. We started talking about that a year and a half ago or so in a really aggressive way. each of your companies, industries has looked at this as well. Everything from the death of George Floyd to the verdict yesterday, or the lack of moving forward yesterday for Breonna Taylor. I guess I just sort of want to get a sense for each of your organizations. How are you beginning to address this? I've seen a lot more action than just words from companies, but starting action, right? There's a lot to do here. Steve, in inclusion, you guys have been working in that space for a while. Talk about what's different now, or sort of where you think you're headed on that.
Well, I really think we could agree what's going on in our country is unacceptable. And I love my country, but we've got to find a way to break through differently. We've been working on diversity and inclusion as a company for well over a 5-year period in a very, very large way. And we just haven't made the progress that we need to make. The death of George Floyd, in my view, was an awakening moment for our company, at least. It was the first time in my time with the company in which we made a very declarative statement in public denouncing racial injustice and the acts of violence that we're seeing across the country. But we have to do more than that. I think it also awakened our employee base. So even in this remote working environment, we took an opportunity to leverage a few programs that we have, such as speak up sessions. So these are sessions including employees throughout all 5 states in which employees can really express in a facilitated session what they're feeling, what anxieties that they do have, in some cases, the anger they have. And what we're concentrating on is listening, finding those things that we can lock arms with, and then turn those words into action. And I think our company has really found much more direct and improved motivation. And we're very proud of that work, but we have much more work to do. We're also looking differently at our First Energy Foundation and how we support the community in these regards. So we're specifically targeting more funding to help those organizations that are dealing with social and racial injustice issues in the states that we're operating in. So we're learning a lot there. We're also working even more closely with minority-owned businesses across our footprint in terms of access to capital, helping them with their business plan where needed, and getting them more deeply rooted within our very large supply chain operations that we have for them. We've been working in those areas previously. We've been given awards even in Maryland and New Jersey and other states for our efforts. But what we're finding is we have a bright new motivation with new opportunities that we're creating every day within our company. So no pun intended, but we're very energized by finding hope within some of the tragedy that we're experiencing in the country.
Well, and you look at this panel, right? It's a reflection of the fact that, at the top of many companies, folks look more like us. And I think that we've benefited from that over time, and that sort of the mentoring and the reaching out, et cetera. Companies have to do more to sort of bring more folks into leadership. At Key, Tim, I mean, how are you guys thinking about things differently in inclusion as you go forward? You've been a leader nationally in this space as well. What are you doing differently? What's the path forward here?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Well, the first thing we did is I think we acted immediately to make sure that we provided funding to organizations that were aligned with what we felt were the right things to do. And we put hundreds of thousands of dollars into Akron, into Cleveland, into the surrounding Northeast Ohio markets, into organizations and non-for-profits that really are doing everything they can to combat this issue. You look at it from Key, historically, we've had a Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for nearly 2 decades. So this is really at the core of everything we do. Valuing diversity and fostering inclusion are key parts of our culture and success, and certainly a point of pride for Key employees who truly believe in the mantra that diverse is who we are and inclusion is what we do each and every single day. Across Northeast Ohio, what we've done is we've established a task force to look at everything we do internally and externally regarding this topic. We meet on a weekly basis, and we establish 4 pillars to focus on. Education around the topic. I know personally I've read a lot of articles and videos and podcasts to really become as educated as possible to the injustices going on so that I could personally be very educated and could lead effectively throughout this. We're focused on mentorship and sponsorship, community impact, and finally a voice of the employee. So now that we have a very mobilized employee base, we've taken to the community in partnering with African-American entrepreneurs as well as non-for-profits whose missions are specifically aligned with these pillars. I will tell you personally, the authenticity and the vulnerability that I've seen in these sessions with employees has been unlike anything I've seen in my career. So certainly I've seen that this is something that has to be an absolute top priority for everybody at the bank as well as across our community.
Yeah, I was having a tough conversation with somebody about this recently, and person was Black, and they said to me, we're kind of tired of you asking us, what you should be doing. You need to sort of hunker down and understand yourself what you should be doing and take it on yourself to do that. Sounds like you're doing that a key in terms of education, et cetera. Carrie, at Gojo, you guys have just created a new position in this space. Talk about how you're sort of evolving here.
Yeah, so, diversity and inclusion have always been part of Gojo's values since our founding. Goldie and Jerry founded the business in 1946, and it's always been part of who we are. Even our values, we have, 2 guiding principles under our values. We uphold the essential dignity of every person. We say that explicitly, and we embrace diverse perspectives. So that's who we are. And yet, I think like everybody else has talked about so far, I think we also, woke up this summer and said, we don't feel like we're doing enough. And we really need to, make progress in ways that are different. We need to accelerate our progress. And so we had already shared our intention last November of formally advancing diversity and inclusion ahead of sort of some of the events this summer. What Marcella Camper-Rolnick, who's the 3rd generation family member and executive chair of Gojo, and I have done is say, okay, we're going to take a handful of very concrete steps right now. But we are in this for the long haul. We don't do things as a privately held 75-year-old family company. We don't do things that are reactive if we don't believe that we can really make sustained impact and have long-term change. And so we want to do this the right way. And that's hard because there's a lot of energy to move now. And so we're trying to figure out how to balance those 2 imperatives, move quickly, and at the same time do things that are going to have real lasting impact. A couple of immediate steps we've taken is we have this position open that you mentioned, Steve. So we're out looking for a leader for what we're now calling diversity, equity, and inclusion. We added equity after some sort of good internal dialogue. We called together an advisory team. We had our own Gojo team members self-nominate or other people nominate them. And then we asked, obviously, if they wanted to participate. And we have 18 advisors who are working directly with me and Marcella on this from across the company. We're getting to know people we didn't know before this. And the goal is really to have people advise us. We, as Tim said, we don't know everything that we need to know here. And so getting a team of advisors who are committed to Gojo's progress on this dimension has been really important. That we've started meeting with those teams, and now we're putting together with our advisors an action plan that includes listening, as others have talked about, and then we'll include picking areas where we can have real, meaningful, sustained impact. And we will go after this like we go after everything else that's important to us as a business. And I'm really confident that we won't get it all right. I'm sure we'll stumble along the way a little bit. But if we're persistent and passionate about this, we will get it. We will get progress.
So Cliff, let you have the last word on this in terms of the whole impact of inclusion on health disparities and outcomes. So in your business, it's a big area of focus. Can you give me a sense of that, and then where you see this right now in the healthcare community?
Yeah, I think SUMA, like a lot of health systems, went forward and really declared that structural racism is a healthcare crisis in our country, and really speaks to access, bias of providers, and those types of things. So Ariel Hopkins is our leader in that area, but at the board level on down, we are retraining everybody through racial bias training. What we have found when you look at patient satisfaction is that the care is appropriate and good, but when you look at respect and you look at do people feel like they're being listened to? You see significant disparities, whether it's gender, race, age, those types of things. And so we're being very deliberate about that. We've been in the healthcare equity business intentionally for over 10 years with the Center for Healthcare Equity out on Hawkins, across from the House of the Lord. Billy Copeland King has really been leader for that. And we've been identifying where there are areas of access, where there's areas of education, those types of things. And we really appreciate the support we've gotten from Eileen Shapiro and the county around the centering programs for pregnancy, but now also parenting. And we see that Brian Hart and Akron General also got awarded and are starting those programs. So those are becoming the norms in our community. And I think the collaboration of the different health systems really to address this has been really, I think, unique in our community. So we will continue to address where there are gaps in care, where there are misunderstandings, where there isn't a good knowledge or understanding of people's beliefs and their and we'd be much better about that. And that will be ongoing training going forward.
Great. So lots going on in that space. I want to sort of turn now. We have a few questions that have come in. So I guess one of the questions around the whole working remote and its impact on culture and space, and maybe Cliff, maybe for you, will remote work, is that going to pose barriers to effectively hiring and training new employees? And how does it impact, from your perspective, the personal connection that comes with bringing people into your culture at SUMA?
Yeah, so we've been intentional that each team, each leader really has to decide what culture they need. Obviously, we have the caregivers that need to be present, need to be working in teams, but we need to make sure they're protected, they have the right amount of equipment, those types of things, and they feel supported. You can't think strategically if you feel vulnerable, so we're making sure that they're supported that way. But if we use the call center, as other people have talked about, we do bring the people in, we do the training in-house, and we get to the point where we follow different KPIs, metrics, and then we let them back home or wherever they feel safe. We actually have a number of employees that want to come to work because they need that ability to see others, to look at others. I would say technology has improved things. The ability to look in each other's eyes has really been helpful. But I think it's going to be a challenge, but we are seeing people adapt to it. And we have areas where it's mandated they actually have to be here, but it's our obligation to educate, to make sure they have appropriate safety precautions in place going forward. But I think overall we're operationalizing through it, and we'll continue to evolve.
So Steve Straw, I love the quip that Chuck Jones has used at times. More meters spinning faster is sort of a key economic driver for your business. How does this remote work play into projects and how companies think about office space and vacancies and those things? Have you seen much there so far in some of the stuff that you guys monitor?
Well, I think what we've seen is many businesses are still trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out, should they somewhat contract their footprint from a building viewpoint, or should we just stay steady state until we get into next year, and we'll see where vaccines and other improvements may take our ability to deal with this pandemic. We're seeing projects that are stalled but not necessarily canceled. So we're staying very, very close with customers there. And I have not seen what I would have guessed to be a more dramatic downturn when it comes to economic development activity and building activity throughout our footprint. So Chuck's meters are still spinning. We're still adding them. But I think there's still a number of chapters to be written here in the pandemic. So from an economic development view, we're staying very close in all our states to that activity, and that's what we see. When you go back in time to the 2008-2009 timeframe, we saw roughly 25% of our industrial load just be reduced and eliminated during that crisis period. We're not seeing anything that approaches that right now, even with the heavy strain on the economy.
So one of the questions that we got came in here for your employees that maybe couldn't be remote. How have you thought about keeping morale up and fear down in your organization to continue them to do their work?
Well, I think as we've always approached it, we're not going to put any employee into an unsafe position, whether that's the training and the tools that they need with some of the most dangerous work that you can imagine you have to execute on. But I think we just have to have care and concern for the employees and their families. Also, a very strong testing program, and the availability of PPE is absolutely critical. You can't let an employee even once walk into a situation where they're not protected.
Right.
From a testing standpoint, if we have what I would call a hiccup in testing, you've got to run that to ground and make sure that you figure it out. You have to have strong contact tracing, and then when in doubt, have employees quarantine where they need to quarantine. Right. And just having the ability for employees to raise their hand and say, I have a concern, you know, we just stay very, very attentive to that.
So, Carrie, you've had to keep lines running at, 3 times the normal capacity plus. How have you addressed that? Because your folks have to come in to make the product.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't think there's no magic here. I think we're doing the same smart things that Steve talked about too. But we essentially overnight had to turn on all of our facilities, and then we were designated essential workers. And so everybody had to be there all the time, and we were trying to hire at the same time and continue to be doing that. We implemented social distancing. We have everybody wearing masks, of course. Obviously, hand hygiene is something that we emphasize all the time, but we are emphasizing more. We've increased cleaning protocols dramatically, both what team members are doing themselves in their workspaces and also what we're having done for them. And then we've done other things like just staggering start times so that people aren't lined up at the punch clocks. Lots and lots of really practical things to make sure that people are a safe distance apart, that their faces are covered, and that their hands are clean. We've had isolated incidents, but as far as we know, we've had no community spread. So we feel really, really fortunate for that and grateful for that. The last thing I'll say, you asked about morale and sort of keeping people motivated. I cannot overstate how amazed I am by our team members and how our purpose drives them. So, we've done a Gojo Stories project that's sort of like NPR StoryCorps, and we've been recording our team members telling their own stories about their experiences throughout this pandemic. Watching it just brings tears to your eyes as they talk about the sense of purpose they have when they come into work every day and do their job to keep people safe and healthy out in the world. And it's amazing how motivating that is. That's much better than anything I can say, from a Teams meeting or even walking around the plant.
Yeah, just to amplify that point just a little bit that Carrie raised, what we're finding is by having employees reporting to more scattered locations and smaller numbers of employees being focused in a crisis that we're really living through right now has actually improved performance in some regards for our company. The level of teamwork that's in the field in these smaller work groups has actually reduced our OSHA recordable rate by about 50%. So that's the measure of accidents that are occurring on the job. So there have been some indirect benefits. I just wanted to add that, Steve.
That's great. I appreciate that. So we're going to have to leave it there. I appreciate all of you and the amazing leadership you're providing, not only for your companies, but for the region. We got some questions about how are we going to help companies as we go forward. One of the ways is, we'll talk this over the next 4 or 5 weeks. We're going to have some more of these dialogues. We'll have a little bit more time in those dialogues to get into some more details, but just helping equip people with the ideas and the information they need to get to the next level. So again, thanks to all of you, to our panelists. If we were in a big room, you'd be getting a standing ovation now. For now, you're just going to have to deal with a bunch of thumbs up and comments in the chat. So thanks again for that. And we're going to move to the next part of our program here. One of the things, as many of you know, we award an outstanding member of this community each year with the H. Peterburg Economic Development Leadership Award. And since the initial award in 2004, for whom it's named to H. Peterburg, the honor has been given to business leaders who demonstrated extraordinary leadership and stewardship in our community, especially as it relates to economic development, growth and success for Greater Akron. Many of you had the opportunity to know and work with Pete. He had a passion for the region, a commitment to its growth and success, both from the company perspective, but also personally. The way he gave his time and his talent was truly extraordinary. And what we do each year is recognize a leader who exemplifies that same sort of commitment to our region. Given the timing of our annual meeting in recent years, Eileen Burke, Pete's wife, wasn't able to attend with us, but I know she's out there virtually today. So Eileen, thanks to you for your ongoing support for us, for our community, and also for those encouraging notes. Please keep them coming. We appreciate that. And while we had planned to recognize our award winner this year, Roger Reed, in front of all of you at the PAC-JS Night Center, we obviously couldn't do that because of coronavirus. So we set up some time for his longtime friend and former winner of the Economic Development Leadership Award, Phil Maynard, to sit down and talk with Roger a little bit, share some ideas with him, but then also we asked Roger to sort of make some comments to introduce the award. So Phil is someone who needs little introduction in Akron. He's a successful entrepreneur, a passionate community leader, and a philanthropist that leads with his head and his heart. He's been a great supporter of our work and a key leader behind scores of civic, business, and community initiatives, too many to list here. With that, ladies and gentlemen, 2018 H. Peterburg Economic Development Leadership Award recipient, Phil Maynard.
Well, good morning, Raj. This certainly was not the way I had planned to introduce you at the Chamber's annual meeting back in March, but with this pandemic, it's really changed our lives in many, many ways. So what I thought I would do this morning is kind of suggest to you what I was going to say at that introduction. First, I thought I'd briefly mention your tenure as president and CEO of Harwick Chemical and how you led that company to nationwide prominence as a national distributor of rubber and plastic compounding materials. And the way you structured an extremely effective succession system that continues to this day that ensures competent leadership and stability for the company. Harwick Chemical remains one of our area's strongest companies. Then I thought I might mention how I really got to know you much better years ago when you invited me to join the initial board for the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, an organization that you helped create and support with the GAR Foundation that established a capacity building assistance for many of our nonprofits in Summit County. As the first board chair, your leadership and direction set the standards for so many of our not-for-profits, and it continues to this day, now known as BVU. Of course, when it comes to leadership, your service as chairman and board chairs of so many organizations is second to none. I could go on and list organizations such as the Rotary, Stan Hewitt, Akron Automobile Club, the Akron U Foundation Board, the Business Advancement Council, also Leadership Akron Next, and also boards that you continue to serve on. I think it's said that you never met a board that you didn't lead. Then there are the numerous outstanding awards. Wow, it'd really be easier for me to list the awards that you didn't receive than the ones you had received. I know that they had passed out a bio to the folks in the audience that list all of the prestigious awards that you so deservedly received over the years. But really, Roger, what's really impressed me and never ceases to amaze me is your commitment to this city and to the young people that populate it. You continue to mentor and encourage these people to get involved and to carry forward and to remain here in the area. You remind me so much of Pete Berg. Your openness, your approachableness, and your authenticism really comes to show when you work with our young people. What a significant and incredible impact you have made on our community. But knowing you as I do, Raj, I think you would have been happy if I just said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you, with my distinct honor and privilege, our winner of the 2020 Peterburg Economic Development Award, and my very dear friend, Mr. Roger Reed. And then, of course, there'd be a standing ovation with about 5 minutes of applause, and then we would give you the award. So sorry I couldn't do it to the people, Roger, but congratulations.
If only each one of us would commit to identifying, to inspiring, to mentoring, the total outcome could be just absolutely phenomenal. So, how about let's help identify, cultivate, and activate leaders for tomorrow.
Biggest thing about my dad was what he was genuine. He was a super genuine person. He cared about everybody. It didn't matter who you were. He just cared about people. That's probably the thing I learned the most from him, is that everybody has value. To me, he was just my dad. And I don't think I really realized the impact he had until after he wasn't here anymore. And everyone would come up to me and say, oh, your dad meant so much to me, because he cared about them. And his impact on me was enormous. He was so important to me. He's everything to me. And I kind of feel like the community had the same feeling about him as I did. Roger is such an amazing man, and it's wonderful for me to be around him because I can feel that spirit that I felt with my dad. There's a sense of calmness. There's a sense of genuine love for his community. I mean, he is just such a true and genuine person.
Well, I'll tell you what, my dad's just really an incredibly remarkable individual. From what he's done work-wise, what he's doing volunteer-wise, all of the philanthropy, and then he's just a truly, truly genuine person. He's someone who loves his family and loves his community. He is dyed-in-the-wool Akron, and just absolutely loves this place, and really wants to see it be an even better place to live than it already is.
So I met Roger in 2012 through the fraternity. We're both members of Phi Delta Theta fraternity at the University of Akron. He's had a tie or an impact in every single professional decision that I've made. He's always been the first call. He empowers me to make my decisions. So I think instilling the values of caring about your community, caring about others, was absolutely transformational in everything that I've done and who I am now.
What I can always say about Roger, he's always generous with his time. He remembers what you tell him. I mean, that's the kind of person Roger is, always thinking about Project Grad, and he truly understands our mission. I think he's generous. He's generous with his time, his talent, and his treasure. He's unassuming. He's not one of these people, recognize me, notice me, but he's very, very caring. I see him everywhere. When you go places, he always makes a point of, speaking to you. His late wife, Judy, same way. Sally, same way. They're just always very caring people, and you can see it in everything he does.
I met Roger Reed 3 days into my experience in living in Akron, period. 3 days into the job, 3 days into living here. And I remember that being one of the most significant experiences in meeting someone. And at that moment, I loved my job. He helped me reinvent my personal definition of leadership. And the one that I really fashioned by watching him and learning from Roger in this community, being mentored by Roger, is a very simple one. It's just, leadership is when you leave everyone and everything better than when you found it. I can't think of a time when he has interacted with someone or been involved with something that he didn't do with the intent of leaving it better than when he found it. And if I look at the history of everyone that I've met that has interacted with him and everything that he's touched, he's left everything better. Akron is better for Roger Reed.
Akron guy. Roger would sometimes use the term Akron guy, and I would be proud if Roger felt that I was an Akron guy. Roger set the standard for what I feel a business executive and a community-involved person could and should be. He laid the blueprint for me. I will never be a Roger Reed, and very few people will ever be a Roger Reed, but I'm proud to contribute to the community, to be able to learn from him and be able to do things for the community that I may not have otherwise done.
Roger has impacted so many organizations and people in town. Frankly, I doubt there's a person he hasn't touched. When you think about the commercial side, he's been on the boards of Hartwick Chemical Company and led that organization, Smithers Scientific, Huntington National Bank, significant growing organizations in town that are just investing. And then on the not-for-profit side, there are probably hundreds, everyone from Project Grad to the Akron Urban League to United Way, SUMA, the Battered Women's Shelter, Julia Billiard School, and on and on and on and on.
I think he genuinely cares. People look to Roger as a leader in so many ways, but I think it's his integrity for sure. It's his kindness. You know, one of the things when I talk about Roger being so caring is that when my father after he had had a stroke, and especially in the last couple of years of his life, Roger at least 2 or 3 times a year wrote him a personal note to tell him how special he was to him and how much he admired a lot of the things that he had done during his career and for the community.
Roger's been a tremendous guide as I've sought to kind of navigate my own personal journey. But I think more than anything, it's Roger helped show me that life so much times is about doing the right thing and not doing it because you want to get something out of it, but doing it because it's the right thing to do. I'm amazed by how much time and energy Roger has spent in helping me along my journey, only to come and find out that he's doing this with like dozens of other people as well too.
We've done a lot of projects together, but I think probably one of the most significant is the Julie Billiard School for Autistic Kids, and the impact that had on those kids and on that school is probably one of the greatest emotional feelings, impactful feelings that I have had. The Three Musketeers had a good time doing that. The Three Musketeers are Sally Miller, Roger Reed, and Phil Maynard. And Sally coined that name. She actually brought a little candy bar one day and said, "Here's the Three Musketeers, and we're out to help people." And that's what we love to do. He has really made an impact in this community. And the thing I worry about is where and who is the next Roger Reed.
We go back as couples. He and his late wife, Judy, and my late husband, Raymond, met a little over 35 years ago, became fast friends. That's how we started out as couples, the 4 of us. And then as time went on, then Judy became quite ill. And Roger came over to the house one day to tell Raymond and I, and we were deeply saddened. And I continued to see her until she passed. And I do miss her. Lovely, lovely lady. Then the following year, Raymond had a stroke. And then Raymond passed. And time went on. Roger and I'd see each other and wave. And then one day I was at the mailbox getting my mail. And Roger came out to get his mail. And he could tell I was having a bad day. And he just gently put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Don't go back in the house and cry. Raymond wouldn't want you to do that, and I don't want you to do that." He said, "Go change your shoes, and we'll go for a walk." So that was 2.5 years ago, and we've been walking ever since. I think we each took the other out of a dark spot, and I have this little pillow here that says the right thing. Too much of a good thing is simply wonderful. And Roger, you are a good thing.
Hi, Papa. Congratulations on the big award. And I'm just so incredibly thankful and blessed to call you my grandfather, and I love you.
You've made an incredible impact on me and my life, and I'm incredibly proud to call you my grandfather, and I have the last name of Reed.
Thank you, Roger, for all you do for the community, and congratulations on this well-deserved award.
I know on behalf of my family and folks from Phi Delta and others in the Akron community, there's no one more deserving this award than you.
Never stop being you, because you are exactly what all of us need.
Roger, you've been a guide, a mentor, and a friend, and congratulations.
We are so honored that you're accepting this award, and I know my dad would be just so humbled and proud to have his name associated with yours.
Roger, all employees of Harwick Standard are proud of you, wish you all the best.
Well, congratulations, Roger, my dear friend. No one in this community deserves this award more than you do.
You are a trailblazer and someone for all of us to emulate.
On behalf of myself, my family, and all of the students at the University of Akron, thank you for everything. Congratulations.
Dad, congratulations on your receipt of the H. Peterburg Award, and we just couldn't be prouder of you.
Your commitment to the economic development of our community has made Akron a better place to live and to work. Congratulations on this recognition, and thank you from all of us at KeyBank.
It means a lot to us at First Energy that this award is named after our former president and CEO, Peterburg. Roger, you've been a great contributor to the greater Akron area in terms of your community service and your work in economic development. Congratulations, Roger.
Frankly, there's hardly been a community organization in town that Roger hasn't been engaged and involved in some respect as a leader, as a mentor, and as an inspiration. I've enjoyed working with Roger. The community has benefited from his leadership. And Roger, my congratulations to you on winning this award.
Congratulations, Roger. Thank you for everything you do for the Phi Delta Theta Ohio Epsilon chapter, and thank you for everything you do for the Akron community. We really appreciate it.
We all are so excited for you at Summa Health. You've been a great supporter of our oncology service lines for many years. So thank you for your friendship, your stewardship, and your leadership.
You never want the credit just for yourself. And that takes a big man to do that. And you are a big man, you're a good man, and I love you.
Well, Phil, thank you. I'm just all those kind words. I'm just glad that wasn't my eulogy. Okay, but I would like to take a moment also to acknowledge the selection committee. I'm just so honored to have been selected.
Leadership is really important at these times, and I think we're lucky in this area to have some good, solid leaders at various positions, and I think that we're gonna come out of this a lot stronger than we have in the past.
We do have good leadership right now, pretty much across the board, I think, and we're fortunate in that way. I think a lot of times on leadership, when it's in place, you can tend to take it for granted, and it's when you don't have it.
When I see these young folks with passion, with enthusiasm, with commitment to the area, I'm reinforced that guys like you and Pete are going to be replaced with equally good people. So leadership has always been, I know it's very important to you, and I applaud the efforts that we're continuing to do here in Akron. We have one of the most outstanding programs in leadership throughout the nation.
When you talk about encouragement, I am tremendously encouraged by these young people and about their early on involvement in our community, about the fact that they stayed here.
No message per se tonight, but a message we might take away is to encourage our young folks to get engaged, that we all can make an impact, and we want them to realize that not to sell themselves short, that we want to get engaged with folks like the Chamber and Leadership Akron and the programs, the many programs that are available here locally.
Thank you, Phil, and congratulations, Roger. This region is so fortunate to have your leadership, and I'm so glad we got to recognize you today. I'm sorry it wasn't in front of a big crowd at the JS Knight Center. Thanks to all of you for participating in our annual meeting and the first panel in our Leadership Dialogue series. Thank you also to our presenting sponsors, Browse McDowell, First Energy, Key Bank, Local IQ, and Summa Care Summa Health System. Because of their investment and the investment of all of our sponsors, we are able to bring these dialogues to the business community at no additional charge. I hope you found this content to be interesting and valuable. We've got 4 additional leadership dialogues coming up on the topics of diversity, inclusion, and equity, population health, the future of work and the workplace, and our 2021 economic outlook. We've identified regional and national perspectives to engage in these conversations, and even though they will not be in person, we're confident they'll be informative and engaging. More information is available on our website. Please check it out, register, and join us. Thank you, and have a great day.